the best leaders are those who take care of their team. And so you see this time and time again. You see it in sports, you see it in business, you see it in the military context. It's the people who put their ego down and say, listen, I'm here to serve, I'm here to help the people on my team achieve their goals.
Welcome to the Build to Billions podcast, where we guide successful entrepreneurs and investors on their journey from millions to billions. We believe that the key to scaling and compounding your wealth in life starts every single day with the mindset and practice of stewardship over ownership and applying billionaire biblical principles. Our ultimate goal is to help you scale and compound your wealth in life so you can give more all the way to help MVPs, the most vulnerable people. My name is Brett Swartz, and I'll be the host today. In each and every episode, we're joined by some of the world's top entrepreneurs, millionaires, and billionaires, and they share their secrets, insights, and wisdom so we can all level up and make a bigger impact. I'm excited about our next guest. He's out of California, and he is in the West Hollywood area, and he is on a mission to help us to build real estate with integrity, but also he has a really diverse background as an investor and real estate developer, civic leader, and activist. He brings a unique real-world perspective on systems that shape our economy and society. His journey is marked by wins, losses, bold experiments, and critical thinking, and he has fueled a relentless pursuit of insight and growth. He runs a podcast that he'll share with us as well. But we're looking forward to the guest today, Mr. Nick Halaris. Nick, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks so much for having me on the show. Looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. And for our listeners get to know you for the first time, would you give us just a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Yeah, totally. I've been, after kind of dabbling in some stuff, law school, and didn't really ever work as a lawyer, but became a lawyer and doing some stuff. I started as a real estate entrepreneur in 2009 and have been doing that ever since. Have invested in everything from single family foreclosures to large apartment buildings to developing super luxury apartments and houses in Los Angeles. I, along the way, started a newsletter called Profit Plus, which has been going 5 years running. And the goal of Profit Plus is to sort of share what I've learned along the way and what I'm continuously learning about, how to be successful in this world without compromising your integrity. And so it's been a really fun project. We have something like 20,000 readers now across the world. And there's a sort of companion podcast called the Nick Halaris Show, which is of the same vein, but maybe more diverse topics. Like the focus of the show is to explore big issues, but through the lens of people who are trying to actually do something about them rather than just having sort of a talking head opinion about it. So that's what I'm up to.
Absolutely. Love it. That sounds great. And by the way, if people want to learn and get connected with Nick, you can go to nickhalaris.com. I'm going to spell it HALARIS.com, and you can check Nick out there. So Nick, let's before we dive into the topic at hand, which is real estate wealth with integrity, I want to take one other step back. I believe we've all been given certain gifts in this life, and these gifts have been given to us to be a blessing, help to others. So what do you feel like maybe Nick growing up, what was the one or two kind of just natural God-given gifts you feel that were given to you, and how does it help you bless people today?
I love that question. And I love a lot. I've been enjoying kind of getting ready for this podcast because there's so much of your messaging that I really resonates with me, like the stewardship and over ownership. I really like that. I might have to borrow that. I'll give you credit for it, but I might have to borrow that. And then the MVPs, like one of the realizations that I had along the way as I pursued the American dream is that we're sort of told a lie by culture, right? Like the American culture is like, you need to be successful, you need to get rich. And there's no reference point to it. It's just, hey, just get rich. And maybe there's some good to that, but along the way, you have to realize, or you should realize, that you're here to help people. And so you can pursue all those things, you can pursue that American dream, but do it in the right way. And there's so many opportunities to serve other people and be successful at the same time. So that just background. Couple things I've been really good at. Actually, oddly, I feel like one of the gifts I have is that I'm a good listener. And I've had it ever since I was a kid. I'm not really sure why, but I developed this like really pleasing sort of side of my personality where people are very comfortable opening up to me and sharing, all kinds of issues that they're dealing with. So there's not a week that goes by where I'm not getting a phone call from somebody out of the blue saying, "Hey, can you meet me for coffee?" or can we talk? And a lot of times it's not really even business stuff; it's personal stuff. And so I've learn to embrace that gift and share it as much as I can. I take a lot of meetings that have absolutely no purpose, but to help, and I enjoy it. So that's one of these superpowers that I developed over time. That's the
It's
main
a
one.
great one. I love it. Absolutely love it. Did you have a second one you want to mention real fast or no?
I think another one that has helped me a lot is that I have this interesting combination of intellectual curiosity and discipline slash productivity. So I basically have developed the habits of someone who's like really focused and disciplined on learning. And that has really helped me develop as a man, as a father, as a citizen, as a person, just getting up, doing the things that I think are important, working out, researching the things, learning the skills I want to learn with no guidance. This is self-directed stuff, things that, and that's really been useful in my life.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That's awesome. So good listener, intellectual curiosity with focus, discipline, and learning. Perfect. It's good for our topic at hand, which is real estate wealth with integrity. So Nick, what is the number one secret to building real estate wealth with integrity?
Yeah, I think that you got to step back a little bit, and this applies to basically all kinds of wealth. But as I mentioned earlier, we live in this culture that is like laser focused and guiding young people towards a vision of success. And this vision of success is one-sided. It's almost one-sided to the point of like narcissistic, right? Like everyone is trying to be the center of attention and make as much money as possible. But if you study any philosophy and every single religious tradition that we have information on in recorded history, they're advocating for a different way. And that way is to orient your work around service and helping people. And so the way that the flip that I had in my own career is, man, it's super important to take that with you in your daily work. And it can apply in every situation and not just in real estate, in every single business situation. There are some businesses where it's sort of hard to see the link. Like, for example, let's say you were in the defense industry and you're making missiles and stuff like that. That's one where I think you really, as a person, you have to step back and ask yourself, like, spiritually, is that something that makes sense to me? And maybe it does. Look, there's a time for war and whatnot, but those are serious questions that people need to ask, not just how much money can I make and how fast. So that's the sort of the high level view of it. And when it comes to real estate is one of the most powerful ways for people to build wealth. I advocate for it. Like, number one, I believe in the American dream. And so I advocate strongly for people to try to get themselves into home ownership as soon as possible, which has really become a big problem. And as a result of that societal problem, a lot of my civic activism work has been geared towards pushing policymakers and politicians to think differently about the laws and regulations around building and whatnot, because, man, we're really setting up a generation of Americans to struggle on home ownership, and it's not fair. And so we need to fix that. And then just on an investment standpoint, real estate is, despite all the hype around all the other things you can invest in, like crypto and AI, real estate is like one of the best long-term ways of building wealth that you could possibly imagine. There's many reasons for it. There's tax reasons, there's regulatory reasons, there's business, just basic business 101. You have this scarce asset or scarce resource that people are competing for. And so it tends to go up over time with inflation. So I advocate for both forms of ownership. I feel like you can't really, in this country for sure, you can't really be financially secure unless you check both those boxes.
Okay, excellent. So I think the first part, if I captured it correctly and listened well, is having a mindset of, you're building to be able to serve more and serve better the wealth, bless others, bless more with that. And then also being very mindful of, the big challenges like the housing crisis that's going on, right? And seeing ways to make a difference actively with those who actually have the ability, hopefully, to make it a more manageable process to get either zoning or get approvals, to get things through, right? I mean, I grew up in California, and went to college in San Diego for a couple of years, and just thinking about, how much it's changed and how much harder it is to own versus when I was a kid, what it is now. And how it continues to be, more and more of a challenge. So what have you found has been the most effective way? Maybe we can talk about California for a second here, to be able to make these changes, because it seems like it just keeps getting exasperated with either more regulation or not as quick of regulation to speed these things through. Or what are your insights on that? Because you're a developer, you've developed high-end stuff and in California. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's been a challenging thing to do. Honestly, many of the developments that we did ourselves were not the best investments, because it's so competitive and so difficult, and the city processes are so broken that you end up spending way more money and unfortunately way more time developing. And in our little microcosm, just the projects we did are writ large across the whole state and across many states in the country. Not every state. There's some states that have sort of figured this out, and you can see it in their numbers. Like Texas is a good example. Texas has become very pro development. And places like Austin, which for a moment in time, Austin was starting to look like California. They had, double-digit price increases on housing and rents for several years, but Austin responded in a rational way. The government did, and they made it really easy to build. And now they're actually seeing the reverse, where prices are coming down. And that's how this is supposed to work. Real estate isn't meant to be some kind of industry where you just have the chart that goes straight up. It's meant to be a cyclical industry, and prices should adjust. Supply and demand should adjust, but for all kinds of reasons, in places where the politicians on paper are the most pro housing that you could possibly be, right? They're like housing evangelists, right? But their actions are the opposite. And so they've created this like unbelievably restrictive environment for developers. And the winds are changing though, because people have gotten sort of exhausted. And housing advocates, like I'm on the board of NIMBY Action, and I've worked with Abundant Housing. Like there's all these interesting housing advocates around the country. They've been pushing for the greater part of a decade here on Sacramento and on local politicians. And finally, people are starting to wake up. So in California, there was this law in the books, just to give you like a tangible example. There was this law in the books that was essentially an environmental law passed in the 70s. And the acronym is called CEQA. And CEQA essentially was intended to be used to prevent projects that would have a really nasty impact on the environment from going forward without like reviewing them, without subjecting to some kind of review. But it ended up getting co-opted by the NIMBYs, the people who didn't want people to build. And so under CEQA, you could basically sue developers who are attempting to do certain projects. And so this was like weaponized by NIMBYs across for almost 4 decades. And finally, after 15 years of advocacy, Governor Newsom finally signed into law a provision that prevents CEQA being used in this way. And so that's just one example. Like here locally, I'll give you another one, just a tangible one. Locally in LA, they had a law, a double staircase law. So essentially, like you needed 2 ways in and out of a building. And there was good reasons for that, right? They were concerned about fires and whatnot, right? If there's only have one way in and out. But the data on the fires is that the buildings with 2 staircases are not safer. Like the incidents it's not working. But the problem it brings for the developer is that if you have the double staircase requirement, there's only certain things you can do on these small lots in LA. And so literally just last week, the city council voted to get rid of the double staircase environment after 20 years of advocacy from people like, Abundant Housing and NIMBY Action. So people are starting to wake up. And there's like 100 more little laws on the books that need to be addressed, but it's actually going in the right direction. And then the NIMBY thing, look, the number one blocker to housing in America is NIMBYs. And that is a societal problem. It's one of these weird things where everyone is pro housing until they buy their own house. And then whenever somebody proposes a new development in their neighborhood, they become a NIMBY. And that sort of cultural reaction is maybe a sign of the times, right? It's another way in which Americans are not really living up to spiritual ideals like selflessness, for example, or being open to helping your neighbor. And it's something that I've been fighting against, but to be honest, it's really hard. The impulse to NIMBYism is so strong in LA that literally like everyone in LA is not everyone, but most people here are card carrying Democrat liberals. But when they get into the home ownership game, they become the staunchest anti-development people in their neighborhood. It's okay in someone else's neighborhood, but in their own neighborhood, they become like the most anti-development you can become. So that's one of the forces that I've been trying to fight against.
Thank you for sharing. Honestly, that was, first of all, part of it's encouraging, right? And I'm glad to hear Governor Newsom got rid of, or getting rid of, or taking away the weaponization of CEQA, right? And then also the second one for the two staircase, like there's 100 little ones, and it's like a death by 100 cuts, right? And then you see this exasperated problem and this exasperated issue now, and it takes 15 to 20 years to get one of these cuts taken off. And you're like, gosh, it's just a compounding negative downward spiral of housing not being affordable. Then you add obviously interest rates going higher, and then you add deficits, and then but I think you said it right. I mean, it's really hard to be an advocate. It's really easy to be an advocate when it's not in your backyard, right? With those who are wondering maybe what NIMBY is, and but yeah, it's deeper than all of these things. So let's continue on the topic at hand, which is real estate wealth with integrity. What else kind of comes to mind for those who are either maybe they own? I mean, a lot of our listeners, or even just the clients that we serve, they own real estate, mostly in California. We just did a large exit for a client out of the Monterey area for 20-unit apartment complex. He's been in it his whole life, serving and trying to take care of the tenants. But then you have things like, you have rent control, which is not new to LA, but for California, it's very new for the most of it in the last couple of years. These different things that are there. What else comes to mind about what practically micro you can do to build wealth with integrity?
Yeah, I think rental real estate is actually something that I struggled with. I've made honestly most of my wealth from apartment buildings, and in the course of my own personal development and growth, like there was a moment in time where I started to become uncomfortable with the idea of the owner resident, or in the old lingo, landlord tenant relationship, because there's a sense in which it feels exploitative, right? I don't think it is. Like, let me just say that up front. I don't think it is, but I just want to share my own journey with it, where the capitalism is unfair in a sense. Like, the critique of capitalism is that it creates this have and have not, because you have owners and you don't have owners. You have people who own these buildings, these apartment buildings in houses, and then there's those who don't. And life is actually very different. In America, your opportunity set skews wildly based upon whether you find yourself in the ownership category or not. And so there is a sense in which it feels unfair. But the way I've sort of come around to understanding how you could do apartments in this country with integrity is by thinking about it in terms of intentionality. Like, just because you own the building doesn't mean you have to be in an adversarial relationship with the person who's paying rent for you, or an exploitative relationship. And all these jurisdictions that keep passing rent control, one of the big downsides of rent control is that it does create this adversarial relationship, because it essentially gives the appearance that you have rights as a resident that usurp the power of ownership. And so it creates this weird relationship, unnecessary conflict and whatnot. But as an owner of apartment buildings, what I've decided to do is just say, you know what? Even though I firmly believe in ownership, I believe everyone should be focused on ownership. And I believe really everyone should try to own their own home. There's a huge need for apartments. And if I'm going to own apartments, I'm going to own them in the right way. And what that means is, look, I try not to fight with my tenants. obviously there's some times when the demands are so unreasonable that it ends up being some kind of dispute. And so it's not a perfect solution, but try not to fight with anybody and just try to provide good housing. And so we're doing preventative maintenance, we're handling issues, we're adding amenities where we can, trying to make it easy to live in our buildings and safe. And taking that intentionality has really changed the way it feels to be an apartment owner, and is producing good results. Like our portfolio is performing well and better than it was before. And I feel like anyone who owns an apartment building, there's an opportunity to kind of use that mindset to set it up in the right way.
100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Really figure out, how do you serve the community? How do you create thriving communities within the community that you serve? It's a stewardship opportunity. And I think you're correct. The rent control things can create a default conflict between both sides instead of working together. It can create this unnecessary conflict, like you said. And also cash flow, right? And if you don't have enough cash flow to be able to do the extra amenities, to build the extra gate, or to liven up the place, to make it safe and easy to live, it can be a challenge. And so, yeah, these are the things. The other part I think about sometimes too is, we're 37 trillion in the hole, right, with the federal government debt. California is probably, in New York, some of the worst, with debt. It's like I just feel, I wish we were 37 trillion in the surplus, right? And then we could do a lot of these other things. But if we continue to spend and waste, it's very difficult to make things more affordable. So there's a whole other kind of bigger piece to that is very challenging. I grew up in the housing industry in the Bay Area, building houses with my parents. So it's close to home. And then I went to Marcus and Millichap and sold multifamily apartment buildings. So I got to learn it on like an investment level in Sacramento. And so it's kind of been in my blood and my career my whole life. So I can resonate everything that you're saying here. So what else kind of comes to mind that I haven't already asked Nick in regards to building real estate wealth with integrity that you want to make sure we mention?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to just follow up on something you just mentioned about the deficit, because I think it's a huge issue. Like, one of the things about our system that people need to be aware of is that there's no political party that is actually caring about the most critical issue in the world, which is the imbalance in our government spending in America. The reason why this is so critical is that for most of the last 100 years, like, there's been one place where freedom has been essentially secured and projected outward. So like when the world got in trouble, America was the place. And we operated from a position of strength for most of that time period. And now we're like on a one-way ticket down. And what it means for people in America is, like, if the government and the politicians are not going to protect the fiscal balance, what it means is the dollar is going to get worth less and less. And so you really have to own. This is where this like skew about ownership becomes really important. Like, you have to own assets. Owning dollars is crazy. Being a renter ultimately is financially crazy. And so everyone listening should really take that to heart. Like, the way this is going, ownership is even more critical, and you need to buy as many assets as possible. Like, there's some people out there in the finance world who are advocating that now is a moment in time where, like, you better stack as many assets as possible before AI takes off, because you're never going to be able to buy them again after that, because it's going to be so skewed towards a few rich families. So anyways, I just wanted to follow up on that, because it's one of the most important issues that no one's really talking about. There's a bunch of people who complain about the deficit, but none of the political leaders are really talking about it. It's a big issue.
I absolutely love that. And in fact, I think we're going to go into this topic here, which is kind of a mindset of building wealth and managing wealth and stewarding wealth. And I call it the three flows, right? You have the traditional one, cash flow, right? And everyone's like, cash flow is king. But I would say it's not just cash flow, it's tax flow. You got to have your tax flow game on too, mindset. And then you also have to have your debt flow. You have to have all three. And Ray Dalio says it well, that pain plus reflection equals progress. And if you're only thinking in 1D, like one of these, then it's very challenging to see things in color, right? He has a book called Principles, and he actually has a storybook of that, and it's so good. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. And he breaks down his principles in it's like a children's book, but anyone can read it. It just breaks down his big thick book into these pictures, right? And one of the pictures is the coolest picture. Nick, you're walking into this jungle, and he goes basically, if you're looking and you can't see in color, you can't see the things that are basically there that could, be a big danger. The next page you turn it and it's all in color, right? And you see the anaconda snake hanging from the tree. You see the tiger over here. You see this, this cheetah or whatever, the different things. And all of a sudden, it's like seeing in color. So I'm curious, tax flow, cash flow, debt flow, when you hear that and having a mindset with that, what comes to mind, and how could that help someone build wealth in today's market?
Yeah, no, I love that, because it captures a lot of things people need to think about. One of the things about this country that people don't talk about as well is that the tax code is wildly skewed to favor people who own assets. And so I have friends, a lot of my friends went to law school. These people make amazing salaries, 7 figures, but they're paying, like in California, we're talking like 50%. And so somebody like me who earns money through real estate investments, I don't have to earn near as much money to take home the same pay. And so there's this crazy skew. And like when Donald Trump, his first time he ran for president was talking about not paying taxes, he's not joking. He doesn't pay taxes because the real estate code is structured, or the tax code is structured in a way that wildly favors people who own assets. And so thinking about how you structure your life is, as from a financial standpoint, without taking into account taxes, is crazy. And same with debt, right? There's certain times when debt is useful. It's particularly useful with real estate, that cash flows, but it's also, in this country, it's super useful for houses. There's some people who have a different point of view on that, but the 30-year mortgage is like a gift to people. And so as long as you live in your house and get a decent rate, like that is a great tool. And I recommend people use that to the max, because you can, even if you have equity, you can go invest that equity in other assets and that produce cash flow. So I think all three of those things.
Yeah, 100% agree. By the way, the bonus depreciation is back to 100%, right? And if you can own assets and do 750 hours, become a real estate professional status, you can offset active income. Yeah, check all that with your CPA and get really clear on the hours and the requirements. But there's just so many neat things that, like everything that Nick is saying. Nick, let's talk about exits, right? So we focus on capital gains tax exit plans and building those for folks. One of the biggest challenges I saw in 2007 was a client I sat down with. He owned $50 million worth of apartment complexes. He had done multiple 1031 exchanges. And he built all this wealth over the years, but he felt really stuck because he didn't have a great debt flow, cash flow, and tax flow plan. He felt if he sold, he'd have to 1031 exchange because of the cap gains tax. On the other side, if he sold, it's going to be hard to get the DCR to make sense because the values just kept rising so high. And so he said, Brad, I don't feel like I can do anything right now. I got to just sit in my hands, right? But I know I should sell because it's the height of the market, but I don't want to buy in the same high market with the 1031. And so we figured out on the hard way, after he lost all of his wealth, all of his properties, went bankrupt, lost his marriage. It was brutal. Just watch it, along with others in California, because they had too much capital gains tax to exit. They had too much debt, and they didn't have enough liquidity diversification. And so they just sat on their hands, or they overpaid and lost it anyways, right? And so now it wasn't as big in the '08 crash. It was mostly residential single family, but for those in commercial real estate, we've even seen some multifamily this last couple of years. Same thing happening right now with those who overpaid. So I'm curious, what has been your biggest frustration with the 1031 exchange? Have you used it? What's your experience with it? It'd be great to hear from you on that.
Yeah, used it a little bit. A lot of the stuff we've done, though, was not set up that way. So I flipped a lot of houses and developed a lot of houses for sale, which you can't really use it, but used it a few times. But you're totally right that it's a tool. It's a great tool ultimately for people who own real estate, because it gives you this flexibility. But it's also kind of dangerous, because the moment at which you want to sell your building is often the moment when prices are the craziest. And so you sell something at the peak. Let's say you sell in May of 2022. You got to go find something, and you don't have that much time to find it. And almost certainly you're going to overpay. And that can lead you to make a really bad investment for the sake of a tax gain. Now, maybe it nets out, depending how you structure it, but it certainly creates this perverse incentive where really what you'd want to do is buy in a time like now when prices have come down. You want to sell in May of 2022 and buy in a time like now, but the 1031 laws don't really allow you to do that.
So we have a better way, Nick. I'm wondering if you've heard of it. I want to walk you through it. We call it the blockbuster 1031. Everything you just said, I couldn't agree with you more. You said it perfectly, right? The moment you want to sell is the peak, let's say May of 2022. Let's say that was, January or February of 2007 or whatever, right?
Yep.
Right around there. And so we built a capital gains tax exit plan that doesn't use 1031 laws. It uses 453 installment sale laws. But we've done that with the trust. And the beauty of 453 installment sale laws is there's no 45-day 180 requirement to identify. There's no like-kind replacement requirement to identify. There's no debt replacement, which I think is the sneakiest one, right? That if you do a 1031 exchange, you need to replace equal or greater value of the sale of the property plus equal or greater debt, okay? So it's both. And so none of those requirements. This strategy allows you to get out of debt, get the funds diversified. We typically use Charles Schwab in a trust that owes you back the money. I'll give you an actual deal that we did. It was in 2022. It was a few months, I think, before May. I think it was February of 2022. And they sold and actually in Chula Vista, San Diego area, these old taco stands. Right? I went to school down there for a couple of years, and they had the best burritos, best tacos, I think, in the world. I feel like it's so good. And anyways, they bought the old taco stand. It was 2 acres, and they had the taco stand guy go into the car wash, and they built a car wash for $4 million. They sold it for $13 million. And the same thing, they were developers, and they say, look, Brett, we don't want to buy something for $13 million. We buy land for $500,000 and we develop for $3.5 million. Then we want to sell it $13 million. Okay. But we don't want a 1031 exchange. And it's not even our model. Plus the market is highly appreciated. We think we got a record price. We never would have guessed we would have got 13 million for this thing just a year ago. So, the time is right. So we built a plan where we were able to sell, defer their tax. And there was 4 partners. One just paid the tax. That's the other thing about the 1031. Typically, all the partners must go together. Our strategy, each partner doesn't have to go together. And so each of them had a trust set up and did an installment sale. They had the buyer for $13 million. Long story short, they exited and deferred all the tax. We put it mostly into real estate debt, paying double-digit returns, like 10%. We put it mostly, one of the clients put a lot of it into Bitcoin at 40,000 a coin. So diversified, put it into some diversified stocks, right? Mm-hmm. And ultimately have been waiting until this moment. And now we're buying stuff at a discount, right? We bought a deal for $68,000 per unit, tax deferred, 375 units for a distressed seller, right? The bases are crazy low right now, right? So I think we've solved what you're talking about. We sell high and we buy low, all tax deferred. It's a little more complicated. There's a third-party trustee. That's our role. There's it's ongoing fees, which is part of how we get paid. But I feel like we got the Netflix, Nick, and I'm just wondering, have you heard of this strategy before and how it could maybe help people that are trying to solve the problem you're talking about?
I haven't, but when I first sort of got introduced to you and your work, I super interested. I started a new business actually that might be perfect for this, and so maybe we'll talk offline. But the business is we started helping people rebuild in the Palisades because we had this crazy fire 6 months ago, and so we took our construction expertise and started serving clients that way, and got so excited about what we were seeing in Palisades. We're starting to buy lots to build houses for sale, and we're going to do it in a large scale. And so that could be really interesting. I don't know if it works perfectly for that strategy, but if it does, we should definitely talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. If people want to learn more all about this, go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. It's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to get started today. No cost, no obligation consultation call. You can also check out the book, Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan, with Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank in the book and a number of others. And it's all about the story of basically when I was at Marcus and Millichap in Sacramento, trying to make it during the 2008 crash, and then just seeing friends, family, clients lose half or all their wealth, mainly due to the 1031 exchange, lack of options, and then us, basically building a new way with the tax attorneys who actually really built it. We just kind of really refined it and evolved it, right, of what it can do for the real estate entrepreneur. Just go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Also, if you're selling Bitcoin or businesses, we do that as well. So it works for any asset of any kind. Primary homes, just needs to be $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain, big enough deals. All right. Excellent. We're running out of time. Mr. Nick Halaris, are you ready for the lightning round?
Let's do it.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you can go back to your 20-year-old self, what's the one gold nugget make sure to tell yourself to do?
Gosh, I think the number one thing I learned in life was just that mindset flip around selflessness versus selfishness. And so I would love to have known that when I was 20. I would have been a much better friend. I would have been a much better, young employee and young business owner had I figured that out.
Excellent. Love it. Question number 2. What are you most curious about right now?
I'm super interested to see how this mix of the technological advances that we're seeing is going to connect with and influence the geopolitical breakdowns and fiscal breakdowns we're seeing across the world. That's the thing I'm paying most attention to. And I think a lot of real estate investors actually don't pay close enough attention to the macro world, but it can have huge impacts. Like this whole fight that Trump is having with Jay Powell about interest rates, like you should pay attention to that because it could materially determine the value of your properties, regardless of what kind of real estate you're invested in. So I'm trying to really trying to figure out where that goes.
Very well said. Thank you. Number 1 book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
The book that I've given the most is called Passage Meditation. It's by a gentleman named Eknath Easwaran. And he was a teacher. I think he taught the first meditation course at Berkeley. And he has a phenomenal collection of writings. And Passage Meditation is his sort of summary of it. And he introduces what I consider to be the most effective and most interesting way of meditation, where you take these great spiritual texts from every tradition, you memorize them, and instead of sitting there chanting in your head or following your breath, you just recite the lines of these passages. And I found it to be really, really a cool practice.
Okay, check it out. Next question, leadership. Number 1 leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by.
Yeah, I think, again, it goes back to this core belief that I have. The best leaders are those who take care of their team. And so you see this time and time again. You see it in sports, you see it in business, you see it in the military context. It's the people who put their ego down and say, listen, I'm here to serve. I'm here to help the people on my team achieve their goals. And the people who do that are the people who get followed.
Love it. Next question. How do you stay ultra disciplined and super healthy?
No compromise. So every day, whatever, set a goal and just do it. And so mine is I go to bed early, I get up early, and I work out at 6 a.m. And there's no compromise. Even if I have some wine the night before, I don't feel great, I don't care. I'm going. And that's been the best thing for me.
I love it. Top 3 non-negotiables. I love it. So go to bed early, wake up early, work out at 6 a.m. And those are key core habits. I love it. Last question. It's a theme. And again, the essence again, and what we're aiming at here with Built to Billions podcast and also Capital Gains Tax Solutions, what we do in our day-to-day, which is practicing a mindset of stewardship over ownership. So Nick, how do you best stay in a mindset of stewardship versus ownership? And then how else do you say charge up to reach even higher heights after you've accomplished something big?
Yeah, I think one of the beautiful things about having a service mindset is it never ends. Where like if you have these goals that people have, young people have, like I had, like, oh, I want to have, I want to be a millionaire. I want to have this many millions in the bank, right? Like that's like a discrete goal. But if you reorient yourself and you say, listen, I want to use myself and my skills and my capabilities and my financial resources to help other people, there's no end to it. You wake up, it's the same challenge every single day. And the more you can do, the better.
Nick Halaris, I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to encourage you, and by the way, dropping tons of wisdom, geeking out a little bit about some tax, deferral exits, and then tons of wisdom on just how to build wealth with integrity and make a difference, make an impact. I want to encourage you to keep using the Profit Plus newsletter and your podcast. Keep being a great listener and intellectually curious. and focus on discipline and learning. It all kind of came together here, I believe, in this podcast. So I want to thank you for all that. For our listeners who want to get in touch with you, one last time, what's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, check out nickhalaris.com. You can sign up for the newsletter. It's free. And you can see kind of all the businesses that I'm involved in, all my real estate stuff. And if you have any interest, please reach out. Love to hear from you.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. And also want to thank you, the listener, for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Service and Build to Billions podcast. Yes, we're streaming on both shows, both YouTube channels. And we're on this journey with you to scale from millions to billions so we can give more, all of it away to help MVPs, the most vulnerable people. I want to encourage you to take action today. Please share this with someone that can make an impact with, and take action too. If you have a massive exit coming up and you want to build a capital gains tax exit plan, just go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to get started. I'm Brett Swartz. He's Nick Halaris, and we appreciate you listening today. We'll talk to you again real soon. Bye now.